All right, I think we're live.
Awesome.
Good morning. Good morning. How's everybody doing today? All right, I know it's a little different because I'm listening for a reaction and I realize that I'm in my office by myself. Social distancing. But we want to welcome you to the Small Business Survival during the coronavirus and beyond webinar. It's me and Marcus Collins, and we're going to give folks a couple minutes to be able to log on. We just wanted to say hi real quick. I don't know if you want to greet the folks real quick, Marcus, as we start to get things going.
Yeah, what a awesome way to kick off a Thursday. I'm super excited for this. Very grateful for everyone who's joining us. This should be a very spirited conversation. If nothing else, it should be pretty uplifting, I hope. So I'm excited for it.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So while we're in the process of trying to project this to Facebook Live and to YouTube, we're going to give folks a couple minutes to get on. In the meantime, we want to give a couple of housekeeping rules and things. We would love for you to share this conversation. We want to make sure that this conversation goes beyond just the folks that are on the call today or on the webinar today. So our hashtag is Small Biz Survival. So any social media platform that you typically use, so whether it's Facebook, if it's LinkedIn, if it's Twitter or Instagram, please feel free to share your comments and your thoughts. I know also too there's a chat section, and I think we're going to have folks put questions and things like that in that particular section. And I know we're probably going to jumpstart everything in the next 2 minutes. We're getting everything shifted towards the various platforms to make sure that everybody comes on. But we're super excited about what's taking place.
I think it should be said also, Hajj, that while this is a fireside chat, it's meant to be a dialogue. So the format would be, we'll have a conversation just to kind of kick things off, and then we're going to open up at the end of the conversation to take questions, to take some feedback, to really make this as collaborative as possible.
Yes, absolutely. Because really, this is really an opportunity for us to be able to make sure that the needs of the small business community is really being met. And the interesting part is that we have people from a variety of different markets that are here. I think we have probably about 3 or 4 different countries that are represented. Haiti, Canada. I know the Virgin Islands, which is not a country, but they're also represented the Philippines. There are a variety of different cities from Los Angeles, Cincinnati, Louisville, Detroit, Miami, New York. So we're super excited about what's taking place from that particular standpoint. So excited about that. It looks like the Facebook Live piece is taking a minute to kick off. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to stop the conversation that we're currently having. So why don't we just jump right into it? Again, I want to welcome you to the Small Business Survival webinar. It's me and Marcus Collins. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have Marcus, who is a tremendous friend who's done a lot of amazing stuff, and I don't want to do him an injustice by trying to share his background. So I'm going to let him jump in and share that. I'll kick us off. And what you're going to see is that we're going to kind of go back and forth and kind of share on some points, and we're going to save time at the end to be able to answer questions and to do and then to share some resources. So Marcus, go ahead.
Awesome. Super glad to be here. I'll keep it very short. My name is Marcus Collins, Detroit representative for sure. I'm in the advertising industry at the moment. I'm the Chief Consumer Connections Officer at Donor Advertising, but I'm also in academia. I'm a marketing professor at the Ross School of Business, University of Michigan. So I get to put one foot in the world of practice, another foot in the world of scholarship. And all that said, at the end of the day, I am also an entrepreneur, a small business owner. I happen to be the business. So a lot of my dealings as a practitioner revolves around what's being impacted with C-19. Glad to be here, though.
That's amazing. So what you're going to find today is that we're going to see a lot of transparency, and the things that we're talking about are not things that just affect you, but also affect us. And so we're going to make sure that we keep it 100 as we talk today.
So I'm gonna kick kimono for sure. You'll show some thigh. Absolutely.
So we're all in the same boat together, right? So all right. So let me kick this off. So let's talk about the state of small business. Now, I want to just share just a couple moments just to kind of just lay the foundation in terms of where we are today. right? So the world has dramatically changed in the last 8 days. So we've seen the canceling of events such as March Madness. So the NCAA makes 90% of their money in 1 month. And so that's all gone away. So we've seen professional sports leagues be suspended. And now there's a trickle down effect to the people that service these absolute industries. So we now start to look at what is the global impact of the coronavirus. It's not just the spread of a disease, but we're looking at the economic fallout that's going to come from this. Our government is looking at approximately $1 trillion financial stimulus package. But as a small business owner, how does that affect me? So if there is money that's being handed out, is it a grant? Is it a loan? And one thing on this call, we're not going to act like we have all the answers. The government is going to come out with whatever they're going to do. But what we also realize that over the next 30 to 90 days, the reason we put this together, the next 30 to 90 days are going to be super critical for a lot of small business owners. Because if we don't take the right steps, a lot of our businesses will not exist post COVID-19. And so I want to hit a couple quick points. So we're hearing this topic about social distancing, which I had never heard of prior to this. We hear about non-essential businesses, and all the businesses that I'm a part of, I feel that they're essential, but the government is saying that some of these businesses are not essential. So we look at yoga studios and people who have gyms and restaurants. Those things are being really impacted. So I want to bring up 2 quick points and then let Marcus kind of dive in. So to kind of set the tone, there is a theory and it's called Black Swan. And so an author came up with this, and so the Black Swan theory is this: there are large scale, unpredictable, irregular events that have massive consequences. For most of us as small business owners, how many of us planned for a pandemic? I know I didn't. My business is centered around people, going to cities and interacting with large gatherings. And so now we have to think about, what does the business world look like in this post coronavirus atmosphere? And then thinking about, what do we do in terms of establishing our businesses so that we future-proof our business, so that we are going to be able to be here for the long haul. And so as we talk today, we're really going to talk a lot about some things that we can do to really make sure that things move forward. And so I'm hearing something from, I guess, our actual team. So can you see both faces?
I see both. I see you.
Okay. So somebody from my team saying I only see one face. Let's see.
Well, while they worked it out, let's keep talking. And I
Okay.
love the fact that you mentioned Black Swan theory by Nassim Taleb. I mean, his provocation is spot on, is that there's so much randomness in the market that we can't predict, which means if we can't foresee these Black Swan things, these things you would never imagine would take place, like 9/11, for instance, you never would imagine for that. So therefore, you don't future-proof your company for that particular instance, which means that we have to be able to be flexible, right? And when I think about this, it really requires us reimagining our business, not just the business that we do, but the category that we're in, right? So when we find ourselves in a situation where all bets are off the table, we're in a completely new paradigm, right? Unprecedented reality, we have to reimagine the business we're in. I think about some very pivotal literature in marketing called Marketing Myopia by a gentleman by the name of Theodore Levitt. And his provocation in Marketing Myopia is that businesses, particularly marketers, have a tendency to define their market or define their business by the category they're in, or rather define their category by the products that they produce, right? So if I'm Amtrak, we make trains, and that's what we're in, a train business, right? We're in the railroad business. Or I make lipstick, I'm in the lipstick business. That is my category, my business is defined by my product. But what Theodore Levitt challenges is that when it comes to our business, we have to reimagine the category, not based on the product, but based on the benefit, right? So for the railroad system, for Amtrak, you're not in the railroad business, you're in the travel business, you're in the transportation business. For for Revlon, you're not in the lipstick business, you're not in the makeup business, you're in the beauty business, right? Or if you're toothpaste, you're not in the cleaning teeth business, you are in the kissability business, right? The idea is kind of changing the way we see our business to find new opportunity, like widen the aperture at the very least, sort of say, look, I'm not in the restaurant business. Because if you're in a restaurant business, because it's not considered a essential business, which is ridiculous because my business is essential to me. So what are you talking about, government? What do you mean? Like yoga is actually essential to me. But if we define ourselves as a yoga studio or as a restaurant, then the fact that people can't come to our four walls place of business, then we find ourselves in really bad shape. But if we reimagine what the business that we're in the business of wellness. We so happen to do it in a yoga studio. We're in the business of bringing families together. We still happen to do it at a restaurant. This kind of completely changes how we see the business that we're in and ultimately creates opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I mean, like you and I, we big part of our business, our revenue is, like you said, going out in the world and speaking, being on stages. And since I can't do that, a lot of things have been postponed or canceled. There were events that we're really looking forward to. They're no longer happening in the current climate. So I have to reimagine how I go to market, reimagine the products that I deliver, not just a talk. Well, I happen to give talks, I happen to teach, but why I do it is to inspire people to realize their potential, right? So what are all the many ways that I could do that?
And I think, Marcus, you're bringing up a very good point, because I think, in situations like this or times like this, it forces us to really have to be creative. And I think in many cases, we're not as creative as we really could be, because it's a lot easier to be successful when the market is good. But the true test of a business is, what do you do in a downturn? What do you do when the scenarios are not ideal? And what I have found is that it's forced me to come up with some of my best ideas. It's forced me to have to think outside of the box. And what happens is that when your back is against the wall, you are forced to be real creative, right? Because now it's like, it could be the difference between losing the business, not being able to make ends meet, and things like that. And so it's really important for us to do this, but also too, I think it's a great opportunity for us to think from a more communal standpoint. And the reason that this webinar even took place, me and Marcus had a call earlier this week. And the great part about entrepreneurship is that we don't wait a year to make stuff happen. And so we had a conversation and we say, look, let's make this happen in 3 days. And so what we did is that we used the technology that was available, had a conversation, came up with a graphic, pulled together a community, because at the end of it, what this should really show us as a community is that we all need each other. That's the only way that this thing is really going to be able to turn around.
Yeah. So as we think about, the business that we're in, it just requires us to your point, to be creative. And the first way we do that, I think, is just change how we look at the business. I'm not in the restaurant business. I'm in the business of bringing people together, in the business of feeding people, right? Even if it's that, even if it's as simple as that, then you say, okay, well, since people can't come to my restaurant to get my food, how might I prepare recipes for people that I can create a subscription to the recipes that I create, which is not the same. And it's a good point to think about that. This is not about how do I get the same sort of margins and profits that I used to have. This is about how do I stop the hole in the bucket, right? Because this, whether it's a month or 3 months, which for a small business owner, it could feel like forever, right? This thing's gonna be finite. This is gonna be a finite situation. But the idea is, how do I take what may seem like a setback and use it as a way to reimagine the world that I'm in and create new business opportunities for myself? Which gets us from reimagining the business to sort of thinking about, if I'm in the wellness business, I just happen to have a yoga studio, but I'm in the wellness business. So how do I build a business around that? How do I build a business model around that very thing?
Yeah. And so if you think about the wellness industry, so the wellness industry is a $4.2 trillion industry. And it seemed like no matter where I go, so I was going through Ohio at the turnpike, I stop off like with my family, and I see this big CBD, I get like concoction on the Ohio Turnpike. And so what that is illuminating to me is that like wellness is going into every single area. So whether it's hotels, resorts, it's events or things like that, thinking about how can I use this, because everybody wants to be the best version of themselves. And so I'm gonna give you an example. So I'm working with a fitness instructor who is online now, and I'm just gonna throw it out there because we're talking about doing it. And her name is Felicia Maxwell. And so she has Fit for Life. And so what we're talking about is people are at home, they need to work out, they can't go to a gym. And so we're working on a virtual workout for you, and you should see something coming up soon. So basically we're gonna use the screen. We're going to help you better get a workout in. I'm going to join in, but it's now reimagining the model because people can't physically come to her place of business, at least for the next 14 plus days, right? And so these are the kind of strategic thinking things that we need to think about. And I think, Marcus, you were telling me yesterday about something that John Legend was thinking about doing. I don't know if you want to kind of share that.
So just yesterday, John Legend did a concert in his home at his piano. In fact, I think Erykah Badu this weekend is doing a concert in her bedroom. It's $1 for anyone. If 1 million people come to see Erykah Badu perform in her bedroom at $1 a clip, that's $1 million for Erykah Badu, right? Now, it doesn't equate to what she would be doing if she was touring the world at the moment. However, it stops the leaky bucket. And I think that not only does it stop the leaky bucket, but it also opens up what might be a future revenue opportunity for you once we get back to a normality after coronavirus, right? This creates a new line of revenue for you. I mean, this idea of your back is against the wall, it forces you to be creative. And that creativity isn't just about how do I weather the storm now? It creates a new muscle for you to think about how do I innovate on behalf of my business going forward, right? It takes out a little bit of fear from you, right?
Yeah. And just to add to that point, and so I've been doing a lot of studying on luxury, right? And so one thing that I'm starting to see in this space is that people are willing to pay for experiences. So just imagine the intimate experience of Erykah Badu being in her house. You have a chance to be able to see where she lives at, and then you get something that's not a canned performance because now the setup is different, the environment is different, but it gives you something that's more intimate. And for $1, I don't have to leave the comfort of my house. I can throw it on the big screen. I can have the speakers going, and it creates something totally cool and something new.
Right. And I think this is not about recreating the normal product. Again, this is not about how do I do what I normally do, but do it online. It starts with reimagining what business am I in? What is the category that I'm in? And from that perspective, from that foundation, start building a business on top of it. Start building products based on that perspective, right? So not only was Erykah Badu providing this really intimate experience that she probably normally would never have thought about doing, right? Like John Legend doing a concert in his piano in his house, he probably never thought about that, right? Never even thought about that being an opportunity. But also with the Erykah Badu situation, people can request songs for her to perform, which you normally would never be able to do if you were in Little Caesars Arena. She's going to be playing, right? Like she got her set list. That's what she's going to do, right? It's these moments of uncertainty, these moments of crises, as it may seem, forces us to rethink how we operate in the world. And out of that comes creative ideation. I think that this is sort of what we need to embrace. I mean, look, is it scary as all get out? Absolutely. Right? Before we did a total shutdown, I was just watching the emails come in saying, hey, the client wants to postpone this. Would you be willing to do this? Like all these different changes happening. And I'm like, man, I was counting on that money, man. What are you talking about, right? This is how this conversation started with you and I. It's like, dude, everything is going away, or at least being postponed. So it's forced us to rethink things. And as much as you and I do together, as much as we collaborate, we've never thought about doing something like this, which truthfully could have and should have been done years ago. Like the technology has been here. There's always been an anemia where we can't get everywhere, but yet there's people who are curious what your perspective may be on small business, my perspective may be on marketing, right? But because of this situation, it sparked an idea for us to do something like this to help people. And I think that should be kind of the wake-up call, at least, that once we get out of this current situation, that we should be constantly thinking about what business am I in and what products do I produce, not what products do I produce as a result of it, not I produce these products, therefore I'm in this business.
Gotcha. And so, Mark, you hit on a couple really, really powerful points that I want to kind of dive into like a little bit more. So if we think about Erykah Badu, so now perfection is the enemy of done. And so as business owners and as practitioners, and I get into the ditch on this too much on my own, is that I want everything to be perfect before I put it into the world. The way design thinking works is that we have to get out of the cubicle and get out of the office. So even with Erykah Badu, you know what I'm saying? What she did was like, look, I can't wait for everything to be perfect. I'm gonna set this up and I'm gonna see what happens and see how people respond to it. The other part is building the community before you need them and being able to connect and having the platform. So now if she gets a million, it's a lot easier for her to get 1 million people to sign up because she had the community, she's been engaging with them. And again, I know we're talking about an A-list celebrity, so it's different if you don't have that kind of community, but still, Seth Godin talks about this all the time. He talks about tribes. And so would you rather have 100 people that pay you X amount or $9.99 per month? Or would you rather have 50,000 people to follow you and they're not buying anything? So I don't want you to get into the weeds of, I don't have 1 million people following me like a celebrity. You don't need 1 million people. You just need the right people who are following you. And so right now becomes an opportunity for us to be able to talk about how do we start to build these communities before we need them.
Man, that you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, I just want to sort of testify to that. I want to witness to that. It's so spot on. You know, this idea of, you know, we look at a celebrity like a John Legend or Erykah Badu and say, it's easy for them to do that. They got millions of followers, but they started off with zero. They started somewhere. They just started before we did, right? They started their craft long before we did and amassed a network of people along the way. And to your point is that you don't invest in your network when you need them, you invest in it way beforehand. For instance, right, you think about like LinkedIn, right? You don't go start a LinkedIn account after you lose your job and ask people to friend you and then start asking for a job, right? Like you develop those relationships beforehand. Right? Like if I haven't talked to you since high school and then I say, hey, Hajj, I know it's been 20 some odd years, man. Good to connect with you. By the way, I'm moving tomorrow. Can you help me move? You're like, dude, I haven't heard from you in 20 years, fam. I'm not doing that, right? You got to invest in your network beforehand. And this is an opportunity right now to invest in the network because you have to, right? You may have the luxury of not having to focus like that, whether you're a big company or a small company. We should be focusing on people in the most radical way possible. And the other part to this that I like is you mentioned this idea of perfection being the enemy of good, right? You know, there are a lot of people who are probably listening. I've done. Yeah, sorry, I've done. There are a lot of people who are probably listening saying, "Bet, like, you know, I'm down, like totally. I'm ready to jump in this thing and try something new. But you know, what if it's not good?" And I've been there. Right. So the idea of creating content for the web can be a scary thing. What do I say? What do I tweet? What do I post? If I'm in front of a camera, do people even want to listen to what I want to say? You just got to get on first base. You just got to get started. Like the first thing you do is going to suck for sure. Right. It's going to be bad. And that's fine. The only way you get better is to continue to do it. Right? You do it, you iterate, just continue to tweak it, make it better. And before long, you look back and say, man, I can't believe I was that whack back then. But you develop these skills by investing in it. So to your point, not only do we invest in the network of people, in our community, our tribes, we need to invest in ourselves, right? In developing skills that we normally would not have been exercising before because we didn't radically have to, we didn't need to. But we're in a state where we have to. So we got to try it. We got to get on first base. We got to jump in the water.
Absolutely. So now we're going to shift a little bit. So we're going to talk about like rebuilding. So we're going to And so you're going to know that this conversation is going to continue to build on top of itself. And so now I want to talk a little bit about like, okay, so now we reimagine what does it mean to now start thinking and talking about rebuilding. So for most of us, we might have to shift our business model. And so for me, doing public events and flying to places and doing a lot of stuff, that shifted. One of the things that you're going to have to start to look at is now I need to now go back to my strategic partners, the customers, the people that I'm in business with, and look at, are there ways for us to be able to reimagine some of the things that we're doing? Mm-hmm. So a lot of the stuff that we've done in terms of physical events, we're now putting together models to do what we do from a digital standpoint, where we can still have tremendous impact, but also there's an opportunity to be able to reach more people. And what it's going to do is going to make us stronger. So really challenging you to really kind of kick the tires. Success in many cases can be a poor teacher because things are going okay. And so we're not really worried about making a lot of changes. And so now in terms of rebuilding, you have to think about that. In the rebuilding phase, we also have to look at there are products and services that we've been offering where we have slim to no margins or doing stuff at a loss. And so those are the kind of things that we now have to say, you know what, I probably need to move away from this. Say, for instance, if you're a restaurant and you have 50 items on the menu, if you look at a McDonald's or look at certain restaurants, in many cases they have like shrunk at least like the number of items that they offer, because it allows them to be able to produce a higher quality product and to be more proficient at being able to actually share that. And then also thinking about what are the remote opportunities for us to be able to do work and to be able to do things differently. Are we able to tap talent that goes beyond people within a 20-mile radius, right? So thinking about how you can leverage talent. And I want to bring this point up too. And it's really getting to the heart of like, how do I do this once things shift and once things go back to whatever our new normal is? And so really making sure that these margins are solid, making sure that the product offering that we have is something that I can scale and I can grow. Also too, when the primary business owner is critical in every part of the business in terms of that business making money, as soon as you stop or as soon as you're not able to do that, then it has a major impact on the business. So are you able to be able to diversify and have other people work with you? And so it's not just centered around you. And so really thinking about the rebuilding point, and I'm in with this point, and I'm gonna let Marcus jump in. So when we start talking about this whole remote work thing, so in 1973, the term was coined telecommuting by Jack Niels. He was a NASA engineer, 1973, and he said by 20 years, this is going to become the norm. And what I've seen this in churches. So now churches who have had an 18th century model, now if they weren't thinking about e-church, I'm telling you, pastors are now thinking about e-churches in a way that they never thought about before. And so I want you to start to think about this in terms of rebuilding. So I'm going to let you jump in, Marcus. So
yeah, I think this is sort of the point, the theme you've been echoing here. As we reimagine the business we're in, we then start to build for that new reality, right? From churches to restaurants to yoga instructors. Just on Sunday, my daughter was doing piano lessons via Zoom, right? Like, we have to think about what the offering is and how do we build for that. And for her piano instructor, this may become a new revenue model for her once we go back to new normal, right? She usually has a studio that we go to, or she does in home. She might be able to start offering these telecommunication opportunities for her teaching, which allows her to do them at scale and not just be confined to her geographic location. Right? As we start reimagining the business, we build for this new reality, and we find ways to monetize it. Though it may not be the same margins, we can at least start to double down on them and increase the quality of them so that we may be able to charge more once we get further down the line.
Yeah, and I think something else. So I'm Gen X. I'm 48 years old, And what I realized is that the millennial generation is forcing me to see life differently, right? So this younger generation is looking at things happening now. They want things to where it's on their terms. And so even as someone who's older, it's making me have to say, okay, all right, you know what? I would really prefer to create a work environment to where I can work and I can wear what I want to wear. I can work on the kind of stuff that I want to work on. And I can work on really cool projects that allows me to do some really interesting things. And so the thing that I think that we have to be open to is that there's a certain way that we've done stuff.
Yeah.
But there is a younger generation that's forcing us to leverage technology and to see the world differently. I remember growing up, and when you wanted a song, you had to buy a CD. It didn't matter whether you wanted all 15 or 16 songs, you were getting it. Now I don't do that. I go out, I buy one song, and then I listen to it until the wheels fall off. Then I go to YouTube and I listen to other songs to see if I want another. And I might buy two songs unless I really, really love the artist. I'm going and I'm doing this a song at a time, right? Versus, yes.
To that end, I mean, I would go even a step further and say we don't even buy the music because there's so much music available to us that we don't even have enough capacity to listen to everything that we want. So therefore, we don't buy it. We just need access to it. So we stream it. Even the artists that I love dearly, like I'm gonna stream it. Unless I'm like a diehard, like a Frank Ocean album, it's getting purchased to love Frank Ocean, right? But to your point that these disruptive things require businesses to reimagine what they do and where their margins come from. So the music industry today is not like it once was 20 years ago. You're right. Like you buy an album, there's one hit record on it, and the rest are just fillers, right? And it all sucks. You spend $17 for one song. Apple decoupled the album and completely changed the music industry, which I was a part of. That was my industry before I got into the world of marketing and advertising, right? But the result of this made the record industry think about what business that they're in. Back then, they're in the business of making music, of selling content that existed on these plastic discs, right? And the more disruptive things became, they lost margins on those things. People weren't buying it. So they reimagined their business, right? We make music content, but we're an entertainment business, right? We find ways to monetize all the things that are peripheral to the content. And today, you know, making an album isn't about selling diamonds, it's about selling millions of copies of a record. The album becomes a reason or excuse to get on the road and perform. And you make your money on tour. You make your money through merch. You make your money through cultural gravitas that you have, right? The cultural weight that you create as an artist, right? It's not about selling the content, it's that the content becomes a spark for all the other things that may even have greater margins than albums did beforehand, right? Reimagining the business and build for it.
And I think just to add to your point now too, it also puts the responsibility where it needs to be. So now every stakeholder has their focus. I believe in life, everybody is selfish. And to a certain extent, you have to be selfish, right? So the record company, all they care about is their pockets. As if you're the talent, you now have to think about, okay, I need to make direct connections to the customer base so that when I need to sell something or interact with them, I have the relationship and it's not just the label who has the relationship with the customers, which is something that is really shifted, right? So,
I mean, think about artists who fared the best when these shifts happen. You think about the Grateful Dead, right? They had Deadheads. They had a tribe, a community, a network of people who subscribed their identity to this band. So even if they didn't have a new record, a new album that came out, they go on tour, they're going to show up, right? Like Beyonce doesn't have fans, she has the Beehive, right? They're a part of a tribe, a network, right? Right. And working for Beyonce, like I saw that kind of come together in real life. And these people weren't there just for the music. They were there because they were part of something far greater. And when we start, and I say we as a small part of the Beyonce empire, you know, as they thought about what Beyonce was, it wasn't just the music, right? The music was a vehicle, was one of the products that led her to something far greater, right? As a conviction, she believed in women empowerment. And everything she did laddered up to that in a real meaningful way. It became opportunities for her to monetize the products that she brings to the market. I think it's this sort of perspective that even if you're not a Beyonce, you're a fiance, right? And you're trying to find a way to zag to the zig in this current climate. It's the same perspective, right? I tell my students that I teach entrepreneurship to entrepreneurial marketing. I tell them, what's the difference between NBA basketball and NCAA basketball? Then they go, well, the fandom is different and this is different. It's like, what about the game? What's different in the game? Say, well, the shot clock's a little longer, but at the core, the game is still the same, right? So while the 3-point line may be a little bit closer in the NCAA than it is in the NBA, they still play the same game. So as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, you're still playing the exact same game that the big brands, the big companies are playing. Play by the same rules, but do it in a way that makes sense for you and the network of people that you have fostered and will continue to grow.
Yeah, so so I'm gonna hit a couple quick points, and then we're gonna shift. But I loved how Marcus just glossed over the fact that he used to do digital life for Beyonce. So he just kind of threw that out there. Yeah, me and B, so we used to work together back in the day. So again, like so I bragged to all my friends that I know somebody who did, who did social life for Beyonce. And so my daughter thinks I'm famous now because I know, and I've never met Beyonce.
I'm surprised to give a photo of you with everybody. Somehow or another, every moment happens in the world, and here's Hajj with a photo next to that person.
Like, hey, I'm here. And it's something else that you brought up too, in terms of the NBA. One thing that I want this conversation to really be one of hope. And that's one thing that we're talking about. And so in 1979, if you think about this, so the 3-point line was added to the NBA in the 1979 season. And if we look at Steph Curry, and so when the Golden State Warriors were purchased, I think about 15 years ago or something in that range, they were purchased. I'm trying to remember how many millions of dollars that they were purchased for. But now the team, I think it was close to like 400 million or something like that. But now the team is worth over $1 billion. So now you have a player who was transformational. And I'm bringing him up, and his name is Steph Curry, because I believe that right now you were born for the season that you're in right now. You were born for this time. We're born at a time where technology and all the things that exist allows you to do something that your parents and your parents' parents never had a chance to do, right? And so now we're going to shift into reconnecting. So now that we talked about reimagining, we talked about rebuilding, how do we reconnect in this post-COVID-19 world? How do we make sure that we get through these next 30 to 90 days, and then think about how we continue to build the business and connect with our community? And so that's the next part of our conversation.
Yeah, what comes to mind is what we've been saying here, this idea of reconnecting with customers, with consumers, that these people aren't people you just transactionally have relationships with, that these are like real human people who have wants and needs. They have a job to be done. They have emotional jobs, social jobs, functional jobs that you as a business owner can help them achieve, right? And not just because you are one of many, but because you should have some relationship with them. It's time to reconnect with those people and find ways in which you can help them. That's the first. The second is to understand that there are other people in the market who could benefit from what you do. That is, other businesses, other entrepreneurs who together you guys can create opportunities, right? I refer to this oftentimes as compliments. Right? To your earlier point, there are things in the market that we cannot control, we cannot predict, but we can exploit, and we do them together, not separately. Every time there's a new Star Wars movie, there are the action figures, there's the cartoon, there are the cereal boxes, there's the video games, there are all these things that are produced by different companies, but they do them in complement to this piece of content, this film that's going to come out, because they know that if Star Wars does well, they all do well. And therefore, they are all invested in each other's success. And the same thing that works for the big companies like Disney and Star Wars, the same thing works for us. I mean, this right here is an example of a compliment. right? You and I are experiencing very similar things. And we're like, yeah, man, we really feel bad for people who are like ourselves. There are other people out there who are struggling, thinking about how do I fare in this current climate. It's like, we should have that conversation. Yeah, like you and I would benefit from it just from having more FaceTime together and meeting more people, reconnecting with more people. But also there's people who can hear that, who can benefit as well. What if we reconnect all of us, like bring all of us together? This idea is not about a solo effort. Like we are a part of an orchestra, right? And everyone plays different instruments, and together the alchemy of our exercising our gifts will hopefully come out to be something pretty beautiful. I just saw in Chicago, someone built a website that aggregated all the restaurants that are delivering still. So they were sit-down restaurants. They realized, okay, look, we're not in the restaurant business. We're in feeding people business, right? We feed people, right? So since we can't have our doors open, let's shift it to delivery, right? And he made a website that aggregated all of these different restaurants in the Chicago area that's delivering to people so that the people can still get access to these things. Right? They all benefit from each other. This is about reconnecting with the consumer, but also reconnecting with the community, not just the people who we typically think may be competitors, but people who may benefit from my idea winning and vice versa.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, so I think in crisis, there's great wealth that can also be created at the same time. And so sometimes we look at a crisis and say, you know what, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I think this is a great time for us to be creative. And then I want to give you an example. So this is something that happened to me. So I got a call or a text from Marcus. That was probably like 2 years ago. And so it was an opportunity to be able to speak at Yahoo. He was busy. He was tied up. And he said, you know what? I trust you. I think you do a great job. It opened up a tremendous opportunity for me. I didn't know anybody at Yahoo. Yahoo didn't know who I was. But the thing is that he had enough trust and faith because his name is connected to whether I perform or don't perform. I'm talking to C-level execs, but he created an opportunity because he wasn't scared that I was going to eat his lunch or something like that. And in many cases, what happens is that we're scared to open up the door and to share with other people because we think it's going to take away from my business, right? And so I think that this is an opportunity for us to kind of to let the walls down and to say, you know what, like if you win, I win, right? And so I believe in karma. I believe in sowing, and when you sow good seed, you are absolutely going to harvest. And so I want you to look at life not as like one cake, and if somebody gets half of it, that there's not enough for me. There is an unlimited number of cakes, and I believe that you are creating something that you have a trademark on that you can do differently than anybody else, right? And so don't worry about whether somebody is in the same space or they're trying to copy what you have. You have a trademark on being you, and you can do what you do at an extremely high level, right?
Amen.
And so,
Amen.
yep.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I laughed earlier when you said that you believe in people being selfish. You're right. Like you got to look out for number one. But what I realized, in life, Aristotle said it this way: that man by nature is a social animal. We are tribal by nature, right? Our anthropologists would argue that we were able to rise up the hierarchy and evolve because of our ability to socialize, right? Our ability to cooperate, right? And that's still deep into our brainstem, that we're social by nature, and we benefit from helping each other, right? The Beatles said it best, we get by with a little help from our friends. Prince said, dearly beloved, we gather here today to get through this thing called life, right? We're all about community. And when we help each other, not only does it bring someone else up, but it strengthens the bonds of the people who are within our network, right? And the stronger our network, the greater our net worth, right? The people around me provide an unbelievable amount of value that I normally couldn't create on my own, right? And I felt 100% confident with offering up Hajj for an event that I couldn't do because we've developed a relationship over the years that I know what he does and I trust him. Not only do I trust his skill set, but I trust the fact that he values our relationship in such a way that he's not going to underperform. In fact, he may even overperform because he knows that my credit is on the line, right? My name is on the line. Therefore, he doesn't want to distress our relationship. right? And it's this ability to kind of step away from, this isn't about me, this is about the collective, right? And I could benefit from helping someone else, and someone else would benefit, and I would benefit, and someone else would benefit from helping me down the road. This isn't about like, tit for tat or keeping score. This is about helping the community. And there are times like this where things seem uncertain, when things seem it's most bleak, that we have to come together. And I'm a firm believer that we are put on this earth to serve God and to serve each other, right? And these are the moments where not only does it benefit us emotionally, psychologically to help each other, but it can actually benefit our business. It's time to reconnect.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now we're at 1:45, and so what we want to do is that now we want to start to answer questions. One thing that me and Marcus both realize, no matter how great of a speaker you are, people love to hear their questions. So so now we got to figure out, because I know we have a Q&A section, we have a chat section, and so so our team behind the scenes is queuing up questions. So so I don't know whether you're going to just voice the questions to us, or we're going to have to click something.
I will. Okay. Hey, everyone.
The voice of God has come through.
So we have a few questions coming in. Feel free to add more to the Q&A section. So we close down the chat so we can funnel everything through the Q&A. But the first question is, looking at it from a different perspective, can you talk a little bit about what you think small businesses want and need at this time from their bank and their credit card company at this time? How can companies like this be creative and provide more than just communicating small business support? So
one thing that comes to mind is that I believe that everything in life is negotiable, right? And so people will say that you can't negotiate certain things. I believe that everything can. So banks and credit card companies are not in the business of losing money. So one thing that we're going to see, there's going to be a lot of pushback in terms of giving money back and adjusting the timetable on repayment. But what I would do is I would look at, okay, what are some things that I could see if there's a way for me to be able to renegotiate? Can I extend, I guess, like the time frame in terms of repayment or things like that? Are the things that I can adjust if it's a line of credit or things like that? And so again, I'm not an expert in those specific areas, but I think just my mindset of like, I'm gonna have to look at this differently because if the same cash flow that was actually coming in last month is not coming in this month, and I can't see that happening over the next 90 days. And I'll give you an example. So I have Pfizer as a client, and I remember when I went to them and we started this project, and we made, it was a great project. And he told me that their payment schedule was 90 days. I said, dude, that's not gonna work for me. I said, so if you're working with a major company, that's great. I'm not gonna wait a quarter of a year to get my payment. And so I had to work with their accounting department to restructure the payment. And so we broke it up into 3 payments. So it was at the beginning, I got something at the middle and something at the end, but I had to negotiate that with them so that I wasn't waiting 90 days and paying videographers and things like that. But I had to negotiate, and I had to go through a series of things. But that's one of the things that you have to look at. How can I negotiate different terms?
Man, what an opportunity for big companies right now. Think of, I'm looking at my Facebook feed or even my email, and I'm still getting like emails about like a new sneaker drop. I'm like, fam, like, not the time right now, Supreme. I love Supreme as much as the next guy, but this ain't the time, Nike. You know what I mean? And you imagine if a major company like a Nike, who make billion-dollar revenues, decide to, instead of spending money on ads for people to go buy product, to actually give that money to small business owners, right? I mean, what a perfect opportunity for Amex right now. Amex, who we know have been invested in small businesses for a minute, and particularly made a significant investment with Small Business Saturdays. Imagine if they took a step forward and say, okay, here's what we're going to do right now. This is the financial institution that gives you a line of credit. There could be a fiduciary responsibility the company may have to help people, saying, we're going to do some forgiveness, we're going to put a pause on things, we're going to drop the interest rate or whatever it may be. But also using dollars that normally we spend to communicate their products and services, their product goods and product services, and uses it as an opportunity to actually put money in people's pockets, put monies in their partners' pockets. Which I think is really, really powerful. It's a really great opportunity right now for brands to really step in. I think the idea is about how do we get past the economic issue and get into the humanity issue. Like, we're going to lose money. Everyone's going to lose money. Everybody, except for Zoom and Netflix and Disney Plus. They're going to be cool. They kill it right now.
And Amazon.
And Amazon. Well, Amazon suspended their suspended shipments for non-essential things, right? So, like, yeah, they did just yesterday made the announcement. But so there are a handful of companies that are going to continue to crush, right? But for the greater portion of us, we're going to lose some money in this situation, which says to me that let's just put a pause on the capitalistic part of who we are as a country, and the idea for economic gain, and let's put on the hat of humanity, and let's think about people and how can we help people right now. And I believe that helping people not only will help our business, but ultimately it'll help society, which I think is what we're kind of all here to do in the first place.
I think that's a great transition. This question relates to what you were just speaking about, and see if you have anything to add before we go to the next one. The question was, how do you balance growth at this time and still be sensitive to people's needs? I feel bad reaching out to people to enroll them in my workshops. She normally had them in person and moved them online. However, with so many people losing their jobs and being laid off, now I'm questioning whether I should reach out or promote paid workshops at all. How do you approach that emotional piece and about not seeming like I'm trying to profit during this time, but yet and still, I still need to keep my business running?
I mean, this is like the first question, right?
Yeah.
You talk about banks.
Yeah.
Like, banks still need to make money, right? They're like, hey, B, I got to I'm paying people, I'm paying rent, I'm paying people's salaries. Like, I got to make money still, yet I want to be human, which goes back to an earlier point. NBA, NCAA, it's all basketball, right? So even as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, it's like, look, I don't want to fleece the people, right? Like, I don't want to gouge the people, but I still need to make a living. You know, I think that one thing you may think about is thinking, so maybe for certain people who have lost their job, people who are small business owners, providing discounts for those people, right? So it's sort of a sliding scale in the products and services the product goods and product services you bring to market. Might be a way to make sure that you still have some revenue coming in, but you're being sensitive and being human about the fact that not everybody's in the same economic state at the moment.
And I'm gonna add to that point too. So also too, what you're doing is that you're preparing people for what's next, right? So now think about your offering and think about how you package it, so that you are helping people to be able to, so as we come out of this, people need to think about how they're going to generate revenue. Your workshop hopefully is something that is going to be a piece that'll help make them more marketable and help them make more money. So you really have to think about what is the pain point and what is the demographic that you're actually targeting, and creating a solution that helps them, so that, like, I don't mind paying a little bit for something if I know it's going to benefit me. If it only benefits you, then that's where I think you start to create a lot of tension in terms of people really starting to push back on that.
Yeah, good point.
Good,
Yep.
good. So another question is, my husband is in the service industry that he can't perform remotely. He has recently started a pest control company, rodents, bed bugs, etc. How does he market and advertise in this era?
That's a good one. that is a good one. I guess the first thing I would think about is, so he is in pest control, but what exactly, like, he provides pest control services, but what exactly is the benefit to the people, right? The benefit to the people is either a better sanitation, like a cleaner environment, and pest riddance. I would think then that while his service of going to people's homes and fumigating and physically removing pests may be able to perform those duties, but he might be able to still provide advice and tips. Now, while those things may not be revenue positive for him at the moment, they will allow him to sustain relationships that out of these things is like, okay, this is just to kind of keep the pest away, but you need to come in to actually remove them totally, right? That may be a way to just kind of take what's already there, but provide his knowledge as the product, as opposed to him coming in and the service being the product. If that makes sense.
And just to add on to that, and so marketing is about changing like customer behavior. And I know, like, I've heard like a lot of stuff that something the markets has actually talked about. And one thing that I think is interesting, because in this whole pandemic thing, we've talked so much about washing hands. So this is something that people should have been doing all the time. And as I travel, some of the nastiest people travel, because I see folks, jokers, going to the bathroom, come out, and they just like, And so my point is that now I think the sensitivity to being clean and to having an environment to where we're conscious of germs and of things that, so I think that there's something in how can he take what he's doing and since there's a higher level of sensitivity to being clean and germs and all kind of other things, is there an opportunity to be able to capitalize on that? And that's where I think the creativity comes in, at to see, can I shift this in terms of, I'm not just doing it from a bug standpoint, but I'm doing so you have a cleaner environment so that people don't catch disease, blah, blah, blah. And so I think there's something there, but you have to really kind of think through that piece.
Yeah, widening the aperture on what the category you're in. You're not in the pest control business, you're in the sanitation business.
Yeah.
Good point.
I think we have time for one more question, and then we have a few tools and things that we want to kind of share with you.
Perfect. So that answers the question I was going to do. So let's go to a different one. It says, how will companies maximize their business tax brackets as this new paradigm emerges?
Well, that's outside of my competence. I'm a marketer.
Wow. So can you say that question again? I got to make sure that, okay.
How will companies maximize their business tax brackets as this new paradigm emerges? And everyone wasn't on at the beginning, so we're not giving advice, tax advice and things like that. But I guess from an opinion standpoint, they're saying, how is there anything that you guys are aware of that could maximize the tax brackets for the businesses at this time? Or do we refer them to CPA?
So I know that there's a lot of information, and I don't have the sites in front of me, but I know there are a lot of government sites that they're actually talking about like the financial implications and looking at if there's going to be some tax relief type of opportunities. And I know those things are going to change, like changing daily, like literally like the last 7 to 8 days. The world has really changed a lot. And so a lot of things are happening like day by day. So I would follow what's kind of happening in the market. I would look for trusted sites that actually talk about small business stuff. I know SBA is talking about the government. And so I would try to find those trusted resources to be able to identify that. I know also in Detroit, there is a Facebook group, and it was started by Rachel Lux. And so it's the COVID-19 something, but they're talking a lot about tax relief and opportunities. I know in Detroit, there's a new fund that TechTown is launching. It's called the Detroit Stabilization Fund. It's one. I know that Facebook is doing some kind of $100 million grant kind of thing. And so there's opportunities out there, but you have to do a little bit of research. We just haven't dug in a whole lot in on that at this point in time, but I would definitely start to do my research because there are things out there.
Speaking of things being out there, considering we're getting so close to the end time, we talked about reimagining your business, rebuilding your business based on the new perspective you have, reconnecting with consumers, with your network, with your tribe, and people, other service providers, other small businesses in the market to act as a complement. The last thing I wanted to leave you with was some resources, right? Some tools you can use, like right when you hang up this Zoom conference, you can start using right away. What's some things you got on top of your head there, Hajj, you can share with the people?
Yeah. So one thing is that we have a LinkedIn group, and we want to create this LinkedIn group. And so I think our team is going to share the link. I don't know if they're going to share it in the chat or Q&A, or if it's going to be emailed to you. And so that way we'll be able to continue our conversation even after this. One of the other things that we've been focused on is really trying to capture the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And so we work on something probably for about 4 months now. And it's called the Origin Graph. And so if you go to origingraph.city, what we're doing is that we're mapping entrepreneurs in markets all over the world. And the goal is that we then want to be able to create opportunities to be able to funnel people towards whether you are a photographer, graphic designer, or if there's some kind of service that you offer. So we'll share that. I'll let you talk about Yafi, and then I'll hit like our last point.
Yeah. So there's also the Yafi Digital Media Initiative out of the University of Michigan Ross School of Business, where we're providing a lot of services to help continue this conversation. Right? How do we take advantage of the evolving media landscape to provide services that normally were in the physical space, now being reimagined for the zeros and one space? How do we create content that lets people know about the things that we do that provide value that we can later perhaps become a revenue driver for our companies? Not only that, coming out of this conversation, we realized that we can't capture it all in one hour. And I'm sure there's tons of other questions. I'm looking at the chat box right now, tons of other questions that we couldn't get to. So what I'm going to start doing is creating office hours every Friday, an hour worth of time. It'll be a Zoom link you can just drop into and ask questions. And every week I'm going to have a guest with a different perspective, a different point of view, different expertise. So we can answer questions, we can help people, right? It's about reconnecting with the community and providing value to the community so that collectively we all weather this together.
Got you. That is amazing. So the other thing, so on Monday, on the 23rd of March, we're going to do a Brand Camp virtual small business summit. So we're super excited about this. It's going to be super, super, super economical. And what we're doing is that trying to bring together thought leaders that will be able to provide some insight to be able to help you through these trying times. I want to close out with this. I got this blog post that came through. Seth Godin is one of my top favorite guys in terms of marketing. And so he had like this short post, and it's about 30 words. I'm gonna read it real quick. And it's called Today. And it said, "We only get it once. Why waste it? We can spend it in fear. We can create possibility for the next person. We can spend it alone, or we can create digital but real connections with someone else. It only takes a day to make a change happen. The ocean is made of drops." And so I think it's really apropos that we are a community. What we're doing today is just the beginning. We're all in the same boat together. We're this village, but ultimately we want to be able to help people grow and go to the next level.
Amen. So we hope to see you guys on the LinkedIn group. We continue this conversation. We want to hear from you. We want to learn from you. We want to all learn from each other. This is a team sport here. We're not solo. You're not by yourself. Let's go be great.
Yes. And so make sure that you also share this in social. Use Small Biz Survival. And Marcus, so what is your handle?
I'm at Mark to the C, MarkTothec, on everything, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter.
Yes. And my handle is Hajj Flemings, HAJJFLEMINGS, and I'm that in every single platform. And Rebrand Cities is the same across all the platforms. Mark also has a great Check the Rhyme
video series, yeah.
Piece that he's doing. Yeah, so they're doing.
There's a lot out there. There's a lot for you.
So cool. So let's continue the conversation. This is just the beginning, and we hope you found this valuable. And let's just stay connected.
Take care.
All right.